Welcome to edgeofcode.com's series of infinite roller tutorials. You can find a written tutorial if you prefer at edgeofcode.com. So in the previous tutorial we added some random gaps to the terrain, we made the character die when it fell through the gaps, and stopped the character's ability to jump multiple times. Today we're going to create a menu using Unity's UI system. So open your infinite roller project and the scene, then right click in the hierarchy, go to UI, which stands for User Interface, and click on Canvas. This creates two new objects, a canvas and an event system game object. If you select the canvas in the hierarchy, you should be able to see an empty rectangle in the scene view. This will change size depending on your game view window. The canvas is basically a holding area for everything that you want to be in your UI, and any other UI objects you create in the scene will be child objects of a canvas. You can have more than one canvas in the same scene, and we'll come to talk about that a bit more later. In-game, the UI automatically appears over the top of the rest of the game. This can be changed so that the UI is within your game. So for example, in a different sort of game, I might want a health bar above the character. And you can use a UI system for that, but we won't go into that in this tutorial. The event system game object is there to handle what happens when you press a button on your canvas. Okay, so next, right click in the hierarchy, go to UI, and this time select panel. This adds a child panel game object to the canvas, and it allows you to change the colour of the background of the menu or add an image if you want to. So UI objects have a rect transform rather than a transform like the other game objects do. And I'll talk a bit more about that when we change it later in the tutorial. So for now, for the panel, we're just going to change the colour. So with panel selected, click on colour and pick something that you want. I think I'm going to make mine purple colour. It's automatically a bit see-through, which you can also change if you want. So depending on how much of the scene behind you want to display, you can change that, but I think that will do me. Yeah. You'll always be able to see what the menu will look like in the game window. At the moment it's just this plain purple overlay, but next we're going to add some buttons. So click on panel, right click UI, and click on button. So a button object is made up of a button, which has a button script, and it has a child text object, which is the text that's written. So the button game object is the child of the panel, and itself is made up of two game objects, a button, which has a button script attached to it, and its child text game object, which is what's written on the button. You can change the size of the button by dragging the corners here with button selected. I'll undo that for now. Or you can move it by dragging it, and I'll put it back. You can also do either of these things by altering the values in the button's rect transform in the inspector. So if I change the width value, it will change. If you change the size of the game window by dragging the bar next to the project window, so this one, you can see that the button stays the same size no matter how big or small the screen is. So this might be useful for some, but I want to make it so that the button stretches and gets bigger as we have a bigger screen. So the button will increase or decrease in size proportionately to the game window size. To do this, you can change the setting in the Rect Transforms anchor presets. So that means this. So I'm going to click the anchor presets button, I suggest playing with these to see what they can do, but I'm going to do it slightly differently. So I'm going to delete this button for now, click on panel again, create a new empty game object. Having panel selected will make this a child object of the panel. And because it's a child object of a canvas object, it automatically creates a UI type game object. So it has a rect transform at the beginning. I'm going to click add component and what do I need? I'm going to type in layout. This gives a few different types of layout. I'm going to add vertical layout group. The buttons will be children of this object, and the vertical layout group controls its children's spacing and alignment. So first rename the game object layout, right click on it and create a new button. You should get a square button in the middle of the canvas. So now click on layout, click on the anchor presets and select this image at the bottom. This makes the button stretch across the screen, so we want that one. And if I also change the size of the button. Okay, so now I'm going to change its left and right values, which changes the distance from the edge of the left and the distance from the edge of the right, difference the edge to the top and the bottom. Let's undo that. I'm going to set left and right to be the same thing, so I'm going to try 75 each, so that the button takes up most of the space. If I move this now, you can see that the button changes size depending on the game window. Okay, so to see this a bit better, I'm going to add another button. So with layout selected, I'm going to create a button. And you can see now that both buttons are on the scene, and they stretch or contract depending on the size. Both button objects are equal in size and are positioned in a vertical grid. Each button's rect transform is grayed out because the layout object is controlling them for us. So click on layout again. I'm going to decrease the top and bottom ones to 120 for now. I'm going to change these later again because I'm going to want to have a title at the top, and probably some instructions on how to play the game, but I'll leave that for now. I also want the buttons to have a larger gap between them because I think this looks a bit small. So make sure layout is selected and then change the spacing to maybe 10, 12, maybe 10. Okay, so now click on the triangle next to the button and click on text. So we're going to change what the button says, as well as the font size and stuff like that. So for this one, it's going to be play infinite roller, and this looks a bit small for the moment, so I'm going to tick the best fit box. This reduces the size of the text when the button is too small to a lower limit of 10, or increases the size up to a maximum of 40 when it can fit on, basically. I think I'm going to change max size to 30 because I think 40 would be a bit too big. I'm also going to name this game object play, and the second button quit, and then change the text to quit as well. And let's do the same as the other one. Best fit and min size 10, max size 30. Okay, so next go back to play And let's look at the button component of the button. This lets us change the color of the button itself. We can change the color that the button will turn when we move the mouse over the top of it, and also change the color when we actually press the button. Okay, so click normal color to start with, and pick a color for your button background. I'm going to choose a turquoise-ish. That will do. And then I'm going to copy this value that's in the hex color box so that I can make the quit button be the same. So I'm going to paste that into a notepad so that we have a record of what it is. I'm going to change the highlighted color to make it a lighter version of this. So when we roll over it, it will be slightly lighter. So I'm going to paste the previous hex color in there and then just move it up a bit. Okay, and then the same for pressed color. Oh, except I forgot to copy the highlighted color. Paste it in there. Okay, so pressed color. And the pressed color, I want to make it lighter still, so maybe there. Copy the hex value and paste it in there. And now I'm going to do the same to the quit button. Ooh, except it was pressed first. Save the scene and press play. Hovering and clicking on the buttons should change the colours. So if I hover over, it goes lighter. If I click while I'm holding the mouse button down, it's even lighter. So that looks cool. I'm going to stop the game. In a few minutes we'll make the buttons actually do something. But first I'm going to add the title and a couple of lines of instructions on how to play the game. So click on the layout game object in the hierarchy. Right click and UI and click on text. Oh, and I want it up the top. So the order that it shows on here is the order that is in the hierarchy. So if I want text to be at the top, then I move it to the top. If I want it to be second, then I move it to the second position, like that. Okay, so this one's going to be called title. I'm going to change the text to infinite roller, and I'm going to change it to best fit. This time I'm going to make the minimum size 20 and the maximum 60, because we're always going to want it to be bigger than the button size because it's the title. And now change the color option to make it black to make it stand out a bit more. Okay. I think that for this as well I might make it bold, which is on the font style, and put it in the center using alignment. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to add another text one as well for the instructions. Move it again to below the title and rename it instructions. So here I'm going to change it to say don't fall through the gaps. Press spacebar to jump, and twice to double jump. I think that will do for now. We can always change it later. So for this I'm also going to center it. Best fit. Actually, I'm going to change this to black as well. And I'm going to change, no, I think maybe I'll leave max size. That's the same as these. I'll change max size to 30 on there. So now this shows that the buttons are a bit squashed. So click on layout, and I'm going to change the top and bottom margins a bit again to make it a bit better. So I think I'm going to change it to 50 for both of them. So that looks a bit better. If I click maximize on play down here and then click play, it will change to a full view, and that looks good. It's quite spread out, but since we're going to add to it in a minute, that looks fine for now. Okay, so now we're going to make the buttons work. So in the scripts folder, create a new C# script and call it menu manager, and open the file. Okay, so first delete what's already in there, and now see above the class definition I'm gonna add some code. So I'm gonna use hash if unity underscore editor, then I want to be using the Unity editor namespace and end with end if. So this lets us use classes in the Unity editor namespace if we're playing the game from Unity. So if Unity editor means if we've gone and clicked play in here, it won't load this namespace when the user is playing the game. So once you've like exported your project, someone will play it. It won't import that bit. Okay, so now add a new method called quit game. So this will be what we'll link the quit button to. So it needs to be public because the quit button needs to call it. So if it's private, it wouldn't be able to see it. It's going to be void and quit game. Okay, so again, I'm going to do if Unity editor because quitting the game within Unity is different from quitting the game once you've exported it. So inside Unity editor, I want to set where I want to set editor application dot is playing to be false, so that stops the Unity editor. And then else application dot external eval. Interesting. Try anyway. Window dot close and then end if. Doesn't like that. I'm just going to see if there's an error. No. Okay, so yeah, if we're in the Unity editor, this stops the game from playing. Otherwise, we call external eval and close the window. which is what we use once we export the game for users. So next, create a new class variable. Can be private. Canvas, menu canvas. Because we need a reference to the canvas component of the canvas game object, because we need to disable it when we play the game, because we don't want the menu to be showing all the time. So if I go to canvas, so this is the canvas game object. Inside there's a canvas component, and that's what we're referencing here. So we need to get the reference to it. So create an awake method, and do menu canvas equals get component canvas. And we can do this because this script is going to be attached to the canvas game object, so it will be another component of this, which means we can just use get component. And we also want to set the timescale to 0, so that the game is initially paused. Next, add another new method, and this will be the one that we call when we press play. So public void play game. Inside this method, we're going to disable the canvas and unpause the game. So let's see, disable the canvas and unpause the game. So using our reference to the canvas, we can use enabled and set it as false. And to unpause the game, we want to set the time scale back to 1. Save the script and go back to Unity, and then I'm going to drag the menu manager game object onto the canvas. Okay, now click on the play button in the hierarchy, and at the bottom here is the on-click box. This is where you tell Unity what happens when you click a button. So add the plus button. You need a reference to a game object that will tell it what to do when the button's clicked, so that's attached to canvas. So drag the canvas game object here, and then click on this no function, go to menu manager, which is the class that we created and just added, and find the play game option. Do the same for quit, so plus, drag the canvas on, menu manager, and this time quit game. Okay, so I'm going to save the scene again and see if this works. So press play. If I press quit, then it leaves the game for us. If I click play infinite roller, then it starts rolling because we've unpaused the game. Cool. Next, open the game controller script. In the last tutorial, we added code to restart the game if we pressed R. When the character falls off the ground and dies, the menu should come back up instead, and the game should be properly restarted when the play button is pressed. So inside game controller, add a reference to the menu manager class. So this will be a public one. Ooh. And save it, go back to Unity, click on game controller, and then move canvas onto the new slot because menu manager is a component of the canvas. So back in the game controller class, I'm going to delete the bit that we added in last time to restart the game, because now we can use the menu to restart. Instead of doing this when the game is over, I need to add menu manager. Menu manager dot, and I'm going to write a new method name which we haven't created yet, called toggle menu. So copy that, go back to menu manager and create a new public method called toggle menu. In here I want to enable or disable the canvas, and to do that I'm going to do menu canvas dot enabled, and I'm going to set it equal to not menu canvas dot enabled. So if this was enabled, we come in here and set it to be not enabled, which is what the exclamation point does. And the other way around, if it is disabled, then not disabled means that it is enabled and it's set to that instead. I'm also going to add the line in to pause or unpause the game. For this, I'm going to use time.timescale equals time.timescale is equal to 0, and I'm going to do question mark 1:0. So this is shorthand for an if statement with an if timescale is 0, then set timescale to 1. So this says if this statement is true, then set this to this. If it's false, then set this to this value. So this also has an else bit. So that would be time.timescale equals 0. So instead of writing out all of this, we can put it in one line. It's called a conditional or ternary operator if you want to look it up. The toggle method now contains pretty much what's inside playgame, except it's more general. So delete what's in playgame and instead call toggle menu. So we'll only ever click on play game when the menu is enabled and the game is paused. So when we call it from inside play game, we're going to be disabling the canvas and unpausing the game. Go back to game controller, and we're going to call restart game after this call to toggle menu. Make sure that both scripts are saved, and go back to Unity and play the game. You should now be able to start the game by pressing play, and when you die you should be brought straight back to the menu. So test that. Oh. Yeah, although it didn't. Interesting. It should have paused and it didn't. Let's see why. it's because we're calling restart game and that is already unpausing it, so we're not doing that properly. So delete that, go back and try again. And now it's paused, as you can see it behind. And if I press again, then we restart the game. So it dies. Pressing spacebar makes the menu come up. We'll sort that out in a minute. Let's see. It's because the buttons are always there, I think. Even when it's disabled, which we do in the script, it still tries to do this. So I'm going to set navigation on each of the buttons to none, and I think that should fix it, because space is like pressing enter. So when we're on the paused initial screen and I click this button is selected, so when I press space inside the game, it's like I'm pressing this again, and then it's getting confused. So hopefully, having disabled that, it should work. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to let it die and make sure it works after I play again. Yeah. Okay, that's better. Cool. Okay, something that would be useful once you die is have a message telling you that you died, and maybe what your score was and whether it was a high score or not. We'll add that, well, the start of that later in this tutorial. Okay, so now make a second canvas game object. So go into the hierarchy, right click UI and canvas. So the first canvas I'm going to rename main menu, and this new canvas I'm going to name it HUD. So this will be what displays the score and a high score on the screen while you're playing the game. First I'm going to add a new text object. So let's make sure HUD is selected, otherwise it might add it to the main menu, which we don't want. So right click on HUD and then UI and text. So this one is going to say score, and I'll set it to 0 for the moment. And I'm going to change the font style to bold. You can just see it here at the moment, sort of a grey colour. I'm going to change the colour to be white maybe. And click best fit, and I think that looks like an alright size. And then I'm going to click the anchor button, and I want it to be in the center top area. You can pick a different place if you want to, but I'm going to put score at the top and high score at the bottom. So I'm just going to click that. This should anchor it to the top center of the panel. I'm just going to move it to the top. So I reckon that should be 0. Nope. 20. Oh, minus 20. Maybe a bit further down. Minus 25. I also want to center it within its box so that it's in the center of the screen. Okay, that looks right. So I'm going to do the same again. Create another text. I'll name this one score and this one high score. And do the similar thing. So this one will say high score, and again it will be 0 to start with. Change the writing to white. Put it at the bottom this time. So like that sort of thing. This can also be bold, best fit so that it's a bit bigger. It's not quite right now. I think that looks about right. And position within the centre of that. We'll add scripts to actually calculate and display the score and high score in a future tutorial. But for now, go to the menu manager script and add a reference to the HUD canvas. And this one's going to be public because I want to drag it on. Save it, go back to Unity, click on main menu because that's what this is attached to, and drag on the HUD canvas. Okay, so go back to the script. Inside toggle menu, I'm also going to toggle the HUD canvas. So this will be something very similar to the other one. So enabled equals not HUD canvas dot enabled. Okay. So because we want the HUD canvas to be visible while we're playing the game, I'm going to set this to be false to start with, so that while the menu is showing, this won't be. So save this, go back to Unity and make sure it works properly. So let's press play. And you can't see the score or the high score bits, but if I press play, then they appear. Cool. Next, go to the game controller script and create a new variable to reference the instructions here. It's going to be a public one again. We want to reference to the text component of the game object. So text, and I'm going to call it info rather than instructions, because what we want to do now is change this text once we've completed the game. So to start with, it will display instructions. Later on, it will also say something like your score is this was or wasn't a new high score. Okay, so save the script and go. Oh, text could not be found. It's in a different namespace. I think it's using Unity Engine .ui, and save and see if that message goes away. Yeah. Cool, so the UI stuff is in its own namespace, so you need to add this line to be able to reference the UI objects in the script. Make sure the script is saved, go back to Unity, click on the game controller, and now we're going to drag the info object into there. So I'm going to change this as well to say info, so it's not confusing because it's not just the instructions anymore. Cool. Then go back to the game controller. Okay, so I'm going to create a new private variable, a string called initial info text, because we're going to want to know what it initially says in here, and then we just want to add to that afterwards. But we always want to know what this said here, because this won't change no matter how many times we play the game. So going to cache initial text info. So that is info dot text. It gives us that text that's in that box. And then after the toggle menu line, I'm going to add set game info text, and then copy that and create a new method called that. Can be private void, and then in here I'm going to change this to display the final score and whether it's a high score or not. For now, since we haven't actually got the score, I'm going to just set it to something a bit less useful. So it will be initial info text plus, and I'm going to put on a new line which is \n. So that just puts a return in so that it starts a new line. And then your score is, and then we don't have a variable for score yet. So your score is score, and this is or maybe is not a new high score. Okay, and again we'll set whether this is or is not a high score later. Okay, so yeah, save that, go back and make sure that works. So if it just has the instructions for the moment. If I press play and fall down, now it says your score is score as well. Actually, that might look better if there's 2 spaces, 2 new lines. So \n. Try that. Okay, that looks better now. There's an extra gap between. Cool. Okay, so now save the scene in the project. In this tutorial, we've created a menu system to start or quit the game, and we started to create a HUD. Next time, we're going to add some rules to randomize the terrain height so that our game is a bit more interesting. Remember, you can download the files for this tutorial at edgeofcode.com on the downloads page if you want to. And I will see you next time.